Well, somebody wants to know what efforts are being made to produce Nigerian-made technologies.
It's local content.
Local
Part
content.
of it?
Yes,
Is it?
local content, yes. And that is actually, in addition to the connectivity that I talked about, that is one of the big priorities of the ministry. And that is because, yes, we see an industry that is growing very, very fast, but we see that that industry is dominated, both the IT industry and the telecoms industry, if you want to separate them, they're dominated by multinationals. And so local content is very important for us. Now, what are we doing in terms of Nigerian-made technology? First of all, I think we need to understand that information technology is extremely advanced. And a lot of the research and the development that is being done around innovation in physical technology itself is being done outside of this country. But what we need to do, first of all, we need to start somewhere. So what we're doing today is we're encouraging the assembly industry. So we need to, we have a lot of, we don't have enough computers, by the way. With the PC penetration in this country is only 3%, probably one of the lowest in Africa. And we need to work to encourage our local assemblers. We've got about 5 companies that assemble computers locally and tablets. We need to encourage them or put in place an enabling environment for them to increase their capacity. And so the student ownership scheme that I spoke about, we have confined that to our local assemblers. Same thing will happen when we move from analog to digital. The digital devices that we will need for digital broadcasting, we are ensuring, working with the Ministry of Trade and Investment and the Ministry of Information through the NBC, ensuring that every single digital set-top box we manufactured in this country. Now, once we start the assembly, you then begin to develop the capacity for actual manufacture. But I think you also need to understand that the industry itself, if you look at a computer, you've got a motherboard, you've got the integrated circuit, you've got the fan. The motherboard and the silicon chips itself, there are not more than 2 or 3 companies that manufacture this in the world, because you need those economies of scale, the silicon wafers and all of that. So we need to understand that we will not be able to nobody actually fully manufactures an electronic device today. But we need to begin to build that capacity, and that's what we're doing. We're also seeing a lot of innovation. There are lots of young Nigerians who are designing tablets, and that's it. It's not so much about the physical manufacture, it's the intellectual property that comes in the design. So we see some very interesting work that young Nigerians are doing in designing tablets that actually suit this environment and can begin to leverage the software development industry to develop software for these particular tablets. And that's what we're encouraging as well. But I think the important thing to say is that we as Nigerians must now buy Nigerian. It is true that you'd rather, you're sitting here with your, with your iPads and all
If I
of
say
that.
made in Nigerian one, I won't mind.
Well, there are made in Nigeria ones. Vantium, Inye, these are all tablets that are made in Nigeria. They're designed in Nigeria. They're made outside of Nigeria for now. But I think we need to begin to buy Nigerian products. These computers, these devices are really, as I said, they're really just as good because they've got Intel chips, Microsoft software, a Foxconn motherboard. This is what is in any of the A3s and compacts of this world. So we need to encourage Nigerians to buy Nigerian, and by doing that, we begin to increase the capacity in the industry, and we can move from assembly into design and into potential manufacturing.
Well, you said something about encouraging that intellectual capacity.
Mm-hmm.
How are you encouraging it?
In many ways, and I think that this is a great time to really talk about the software development industry, because that's intellectual capacity. We are focusing very, very strongly in the software development industry. This is an industry that potentially could be it's roughly about $6 billion industry. And that industry is, again, largely dominated by multinationals. And so what we're doing, and we've seen anecdotally lots of young Nigerians who are actually developing software. I've been to many international forums where Nigerians have actually won prizes for the best software in particular categories. So what we're doing is we are building these incubation centers, and basically what they will do is to help young Nigerian developers to take their ideas, their software development ideas, and put them in a way that is much more robust. It's much more, it's better tested. It's more robust. It's more relevant to the industry to which they're developing them for, and they can develop businesses out of this. So they go into the incubation centers with an idea, and we work with them over a period of 6 to 12 months to take that idea into commercialization.
The incubation centers, are they already in existence?
They will be in existence by the end of this quarter. But I think so we're actually building those, we're developing and building those incubation centers. The pilot one is going to be in Cross River State in Calabar, and there's going to be one in
Lagos.
Lagos. And we will be, actually, we've started, all the design work has been done. We've started the recruitment of the personnel, and this time that we're doing right now is actually fitting out those centers and setting up the governing council. But I think let me just quickly say, we've launched an initiative that will be the feeder into these incubation centers, and that's what's called the Tech Launchpad. Now, the Tech Launchpad is a collaboration between the banking industry, the oil and gas industry, and the ministry. So Axis Bank, First Bank, Total, Chevron, and ExxonMobil are working with us. And what we've done, we've just launched the program, techlaunchpad.com.ng. We're asking young developers to submit their beta software applications onto the website. And what will happen is that we will go through a process of looking at those pieces of software, the ones that best match industry requirements. Yeah. We would take those into our incubation centers. They will work with the CIOs and a network of support to actually take these pieces of software and make them commercially viable and relevant for banks and for oil and gas industries. Because there are two issues that our software developers say they have. Number one is access to markets. They can develop this software, but they don't have the access to actually market and sell this software. The second issue they have is capital, because these are young people. They don't have any collateral. They can't borrow money from a bank, for instance. So in addition to the incubation centers, we're actually setting up a venture capital fund. It's the first IT-focused venture capital fund in the country. We're just about to engage the fund managers. And what this venture capital fund will do is to actually provide funding for the most, for the software companies that are seen to have the most viable products. But throughout the life of development of a young software entrepreneur, he needs a grant while he's developing the software. He needs an angel investor while the software is being incubated. He needs venture capital when he's going into a commercial business. He needs private equity when he wants to move his company to the next level. And we're actually working to develop that whole financing life cycle, if I can call it that, from the venture capital fund to the angel investor network and all the way through to private equity, which exists in Nigeria today.
Well, some people might say that this sounds, all for people that have gone to school. I mean, people who have education. How would you say your ministry impacts those people who have no education whatsoever?
Well, that's a different issue. Are you saying in terms of software development?
No, in terms of the existence of your ministry.
Well, you see, the existence of the ministry, and that's a great question, because what technology does is that it allows you to have more inclusive development. Now, we live in a country where about more than 60% of our population lives in the rural areas, and they are, in a sense, excluded from a lot of the development that goes on. Now, the mobile phone becomes that tool of inclusive development, because you can use that phone, like I was saying earlier, it's no longer a communication device. It's a device, we can use it for financial inclusion, so the mobile money that you're seeing around, anybody that has a phone can have a bank account, whether you're literate or not, or whether you can travel to a bank or not. We can use it for health services, so I don't know if you've heard about the Save 1 Million Lives campaign that is being initiated by the Ministry of Health, where they're actually going to save 1 million lives by 2015, both in terms of child mortality and maternal mortality, with a single mobile phone, where you're actually transmitting information and services on health and tracking a pregnant mother all throughout her pregnancy. You can use it. So, I mean, that's the way that we're including, that we're working with the people that are unserved or underserved or inadvertently excluded from the development of the country, and that's where we begin to make a lot of a difference.
In all of this, for us to play on the international scene, we need a law, we need a framework. I mean, some countries have got what they call the Digital Economy Act, like UK of 2010. Are you looking to put a law in place to ensure that all of this is properly harnessed?
Well, what we have is a national ICT policy, and that policy basically defines the intent of government as far as the ICT industry is concerned. And what it does there is that it just says it provides a predictable and a sustainable and a consistent way of people to understand where we're taking the ICT industry to. Now, portions of that policy will be enacted into law. Some of the policy talks about local content, some of the policy talks about cybersecurity. So portions of it will be enacted into law, but the important thing is to have a policy that overarches what we're doing in the ICT industry.
Let's get this on before we go. I just remember this Phone for Farmers initiative. What's the role of your ministry in this?
Okay. The role, and I should have mentioned actually when I said agriculture, health, education, that's the way we're using the mobile phone. The role of our ministry is to provide the connectivity. Because what we find is that a number of these, and we work with the Ministry of Agriculture in that, a number of these farmers, the majority of them are in rural areas. And basically what we find is that the connectivity to the rural areas, they're unserved. They don't have the connectivity. We only have about 60% coverage in the country today. So the role of the USP fund, which is under the within the NCC, is actually to provide connectivity to the unserved and the underserved areas.
So you're not providing the phones?
No,
themselves?
we're providing the connectivity to the underserved and unserved areas so that people in those areas can now have phones and they can benefit from all the initiatives that the Ministry of Agriculture is putting in place, both in terms of the e-wallet and also the agricultural services.
The controversy had been with the phones and how much they were going to cost. I mean, and the Minister of Agriculture had said they were going to be working with your ministry, drawing from a fund. I'm just trying to clarify that you were not providing the phones, you know, that caused the controversy in the very
No,
first
because
instance.
look, the Ministry of Communication Technology does not procure phones. Neither does the Ministry of Agriculture. So we will not be procuring phones for either farmers or anybody in Nigeria. I think
Okay.
the fact of the matter is that we need phones and people will buy.